Welcome to Keeping Score. I'm Rick Horrow. Each week we bring you insights from the playmakers, deal makers, and rule makers in the world of sports. I'll give you my take on some of the items of the week using my 30 years of experience doing deals for teams, leagues, and players in the $750 billion business of sports. Plus, we'll talk with a central figure in the sports world. The views expressed in this podcast are my own and do not represent the views of Reuters. Let's get started. A unique in-studio experience today. We always talk about the trillion-dollar business of sports, but frankly, I do it from afar, and it is exciting, exhilarating, and maybe even more to talk to the worldwide digital editor of Reuters, Dan Colarusso, within 3 feet of each other. Hello.
It's amazing. You can hit me from this distance, so I'll have to be nicer to you this
Remind
week.
me.
But yeah, we should have simulcast this. We should have cameras in here,
all
like
over
Mike
the
and
world.
Mike, right?
Mike and Mike,
Yeah,
Rick and Dan. That's what we need.
But it's good to have you in studio, and it's good to have a face-to-face conversation. It's,
We will
very
do this,
human, right?
We will do this at least once a month, to the extent that you will, for the first time in a long time, actually pay for lunch. But that,
right.
of course, didn't
that
happen.
that will be. You'll have to wait for that one.
Yes, I understand that. But the one thing we're not going to wait for, by the way, risk of a little trite, is, you hear about the NFL never sleeping. It's 2 weeks ago when Brady's amazing comeback, and now we're talking about a $10 million economic impact of the 31st year in a row where the Combine is actually going to Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis this weekend. So this is one of those rotating events that is not rotating. It's staying in Indianapolis. The Pro Bowl goes to different cities. The draft goes to different cities. Super Bowl, obviously. Combine loves Indianapolis. Indianapolis
I
loves
love
the
it.
Combine.
I love the Combine because it's a total for a football junkie. It is your fix. It is your post-Super Bowl, pre-draft fix. And it's so much fun. The fact that they televise it, it's almost like watching, warm-ups for the Winter Classic.
Yeah.
It's a
Right.
totally derivative, tangential thing, crucially important economically, but they've turned it into an event, and it's kind of fun to watch, and it's fun to see on ESPN. It's a guess.
The NFL has actually offered premium tickets for people, and we covered this a couple of years ago, where you sit up there in Lucas Oil Stadium and the coaches don't like it because they want this special secret sauce interview that nobody else has. But the fans have packages. They can buy suites to watch the players actually do the hurdles and do the shuttle run.
I mean, if you look at the combination of like college football junkies, right, and pro football crazies, like you'll go out if you're an Alabama fan and you have 6 guys or 8 guys at the Combine. It's great. That's like, did you ever go? I used to do it when I was younger. But do you ever go to like football training camp?
Oh yeah, all the time.
You probably do, right?
I did when I was younger, and it's like spring training. We'll do a lot of that next week, but it's the same kind of thing.
It's a lot of fun. It's a pure sports experience. It's almost old school.
Yeah.
And it's fun. But the Combine is important now, right?
Well,
I mean, let's get into the real importance of the Combine now is that if you're picking stocks. If you're an NFL GM and you want to liken it to picking stocks, you need immediate winners. Like you need your first 3 rounds to get on the field. Like there's not a lot of room for projects anymore just because of the economic balancing. You see it now as players go through, as they start to put the franchise tag on players, some of the teams, and start to negotiate, and the free agent season has started. You need that great young player or two to plug the holes for you and get that amortization of cost out of your way, right?
Well put in the amortization context,
Right.
but it is kind of interesting because there are 2 different ways to go with this one. The one is that, remember, in this collective bargaining agreement, the rookie salary cap is much lower, so the mistakes actually don't cost you as much as they used to. But on the other hand, everybody now requires you to win today, not 3 years
Right. I mean, the mistakes don't cost you, but you can't make other mistakes in free agency,
That's
right?
right.
And then so that's a big deal because the free agents are so expensive. So it's not a matter of your draft picks being mistakes. It's a matter of them getting on the field and playing well right away.
Right. And the other thing is a lot of the players now are being asked by their agents through the owners to say, take a cut by restructuring your contract. What the restructuring really means is to take the guaranteed piece and spread it out over a different time.
Right.
So it's a different kind of cap. But the bottom line is you only do that is if you're one position or one kind of player away and you can guarantee some kind of success over time. And why is that important? It's because if you don't draft well, that argument doesn't make any sense.
Right, because you're never the one player
Right,
away.
that's
You're constantly in that
exactly right.
rebuilding mode, and you've seen it. You've seen it around the league this year. I mean, in New York, where you saw a beloved player, Victor Cruz, jettisoned, and
Right.
he had gotten hurt, restructured last year, And when it came time, they didn't even want to restructure him again. And they figured, well, we've had some luck in the draft for wide receivers. We need that capital. We need to put that dry powder.
In the era of political correctness, it is amazing what goes on in those interview rooms. Apparently, the agents say that the general manager types try to trip the athlete up by asking a few questions, then ask the standard "do you beat your wife" question. And in this context, it's really, really important. And the agents prepared these guys. So it is the jousting that goes on in the interview room is almost as important as the jousting that goes on in the field.
I would like, if you can, use your many connections to give me the Giants psychological test, because I understand that's supposed to be like the gold standard of like psychological tests they give. I would love to take that to see if I would make it on my favorite team.
I think what it is it's a cutout logo of a Joe Pisarcik fumble. I think.
Thank you. I still have that wound is still hasn't healed, but okay.
Well, we're twisting the knife, ladies and gentlemen, and moving on.
Jersey Joe Pisarcik.
Yeah, exactly. And who was he handing it off to?
Larry Zonka.
Very well done.
Who recovered the fumble? Herman Edwards.
Herman Edwards. That's right. Well, there we go. By the way, Giants fans, you've already tuned off to the podcast. So that's okay. Let's talk about stadiums. So San Diego has almost forgotten the Vagabond Chargers. They're moving up the road. They're dealing with the new stadium called the City of Champions Stadium, $3.5 billion. It'll open maybe for the Olympics and the Chargers and the Rams. Another story for another day. But what does San Diego do? They turn around and offer an ability to have a 30,000-seat or so soccer stadium, getting off the mat, as it were, and then including San Diego State and the whole thing. What's your take?
Look, I think it's great. I think MLS the footprint is starting to mean something on the American, sports financial landscape. And I think the idea that you do that in Southern California, another slice of Southern California, you have a great population mix, great demographic for soccer, much like we have in New York and New Jersey on the East Coast. And I think the fact that soccer has become the affluent spectator sport on one hand, and still a sport of immigrants and new arrivals to America, I think it's a great move for San Diego. I'm a big fan of that move. And you and I talk a lot about value when you're spending money on sports, whether it's franchise or rights deal, whatever. I think this is a great value for them compared to what they would have had to pay to keep the Chargers.
Well, and that's an interesting concept, because you also make the point about how important soccer has become. Don Garber, the MLS guy, is now coordinating an expansion process that might have up to 4 teams new beyond today, but 16 applicants, which means you're going to drive the price up, and it's a zero-sum game, and everybody's excited about it. But when you look at what these developers proposing, it's a $1 billion soccer city project, what they call it. Nearly 5,000 homes, 3 million square feet of office space, 55 acres of parks, a lot of Qualcomm Stadium history, but the Chargers are gone. So you'd have never heard that kind of development opportunity associated with the soccer stadium before, but the San Diego has nothing else.
Right, but that's irrelevant. Right, the sport is to some degree irrelevant, and the fact that that you're drawing in a crowd, a whole different demographic crowd possibly. That's not just going to come on Sundays. That's going to be a different mix, and I think that you have the ability to do that kind of cross-platform development, much like Ratner did around the arena in Brooklyn, much like Cleveland did around this stadium. I think it makes perfect sense. If you're going to partner with the municipality to be in the sports business, it makes sense to bring other assets into the mix.
And broadly defined football stadiums, other than this tremendous awareness and the thought of having a Super Bowl every 4 or 5 years, and it's heresy for me because I worked for the NFL for a long time, really don't have as much economic impact as other stadiums. Why? Well, it's 10 home games a year plus some other ancillary events. The arenas have 80 home games a year times 2, and the baseball stadium has 80. So you really got
there's not a ton of value in there. I mean, there's a ton of long-term brand identity, like real estate footprint value, but there's not that great dynamic value that
I find it really interesting, and let the record reflect, and we should probably get it and rack it up, that Dan Colarusso has become a soccer apologist and enthusiast. Years ago, we should get some of the old stuff about how you feel about soccer.
Well, I like the sound of cash registers ringing around my sports, and I think MLS is getting there.
Now we're going to talk about another sport which may even be weirder. What do you know about esports?
Nothing.
Good. All right. Well,
I know that it exists, and I know that people far younger than me consider it a sport.
Far younger than you.
I've never played. I have no feelings.
Right. Well, you played, but you played in a bar when you dropped like a quarter into a machine and you
in a pizzeria, in Brooklyn back in 1978.
But you're not representing a city, and you're not one of the 35 million people who are hooked on this. Now, Millennial Esports set to open a 15,000 square foot esports arena, where, of course, in Vegas. A 200-seat arena, stadium-style seating, main room for 500 people. You know what it sounds like to me? It's like those new high-end bowling alleys and movie theaters where you do everything with special food service and all that. But now it's esports. And the bottom line is, of course, merchandise where fans can buy stuff, concession stands where fans can eat stuffs, and of course cynics predicted that esports would be ancient history, but now we got these arenas, we got these stadiums, and you know nothing about it.
I know nothing about the sport, but you know what I do know, Rick? I know the human heart. and I will tell you that this is a community. If you look at some of the companies, the media companies that evolved around this is a community that wants to be together, and it's a very strong fabric, whether it's a virtual relationship or now building like real, actual events around these things. There's a kindred nature to it, and there's a fanaticism around it, and that's it's not any different than college football. Real sports is no less artificial or contrived than esports, right?
Right.
So it's more about the community. It's more about being around like-minded, crazy people, but they're crazy for a different
thing.
Emphasis
on crazy people.
Yeah.
But it's as you said, the social fabric, and I find it, again, interesting that as we go through Colaruso's discussion about the human condition, that his one opportunity to talk about the human heart relates to the development of esports, which is a little bit attenuated, but I guess we have to deal with it.
Look, esports is if you can combine Hollywood and the NFL into one thing,
that's fair.
You have esports, and that's kind of a nice economic equation too.
Yeah,
absent the human heart, of course.
No, absent the human heart. But listen, they've got LED video wall, theater lighting, and this sounds like again, cash register, a franchise for cities to follow their team. And a little shameless plug, we're going to do the MIT Sloan conference, and one of the people who has driven esports is going to be one of our subjects, which
that's
I can't wait.
I'm looking forward
to
that.
to hear about how that person thinks that this is going to be a sport over the next few years.
Look, is it going to be 100,000? See, it's not going to be Michigan football, right?
Right.
But it's a nice niche, and again, there's value to squeeze out of it, and guys don't get hurt. What do you get, carpal tunnel?
Carpal tunnel.
Like, is it like you need an insurance policy for you guys if they get carpal tunnel?
Carpal tunnel, and apparently
no concussion problems,
cataract.
no ACL,
cataracts, and carpal tunnel.
That can be fixed.
They can. It can all be fixed. There's more cash register, and in the Who to Thunk It department, just a little bit of a parenthetical before we get into the interview. So Major League Baseball is now joining the bandwagon. They have found themselves a new streaming partner in Facebook. You remember Twitter's deal with the NFL, and now NFL with Facebook. And what they're doing is
Yahoo as well.
Yahoo, significant rights fees. But what we're seeing is that, like the MLB deal, Facebook's live streaming of Liga MX matches, global basketball games, and table tennis, by the way. So live streaming of table tennis on Facebook. Now we know we've arrived.
Well, you could actually, it's probably the only place you could economically broadcast table tennis to an audience of that size or lack thereof.
Right, on that little phone.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. I think Facebook wants video.
Right.
Facebook wants must-see video. That's the game now, right? So in that realm, this is a really smart deal to make. There are a lot of baseball games out there, so you can pick spots, and there's some that are less valuable than others, and the league probably doesn't mind cutting Facebook in on some of the rights. I think if Facebook, we don't know whether Facebook wants to be a TV channel or a cable carrier. Right. So they want to be Comcast or they want to be ESPN. My idea is that it probably wants to be more like Comcast, and as if we needed another reason to go to Facebook. Right. America's, you're highly, connected to Facebook via your political arguments, your old sweethearts, your buddies who you haven't seen or who moved across the country. You want all that. Now you can watch baseball. Well, I'll never need anything else except Facebook, right, for an older audience.
Right.
It'll be interesting with Snapchat raising all this money. They're going into the public markets this week. And do they get more into the game than simply being weekly highlights? Do they then bid on something weirdly live? Do they then create more derivative products out of it? It'll be interesting to see, because now they have fresh cash, and they have to buy content, or they have to use that money for something to draw people in that they can't get in other places.
So years ago, if you were to tell me that DirecTV would be a bidder against the NBCs of the world for NFL games, you're nuts. Now, the next bidding cycle for all of these sports, is it going to be the traditionals and then a separate category or the same category with Amazon, Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter, Yahoo?
If you look at the capital that these companies will have and how they don't spend money on other programming, if Amazon has Woody Allen making films, why can't Facebook have NFL rights?
Right. And really good comment, because the real key and big difference used to be ultimate reality. You know, you're not going to archive it. You got to know what the score is, and all of these companies have the ability to.
It's
all right,
all
let's do it
fixed.
live.
It's all
yeah,
fixed.
Yeah, exactly. And so here's the interesting dynamic. PricewaterhouseCoopers says that the sports media rights market in North America alone, about $20 billion. Interesting stat. In the U.S., consumer spending on video streaming, about $6.6 billion in 2016, 22% increase over last year. This is your wheelhouse. And so where is the distinction between video and television? The answer is we don't know where that is, right?
Well, I think it's somewhat disappearing, and I think the same fragmentation you've seen in maybe the news business, the same fragmentation you've seen in how you watch television and how you get entertainment. Do I watch it on Amazon Prime? Do I watch it on Netflix? Do I watch it on Apple TV? I think that same fragmentation is about to land squarely on the sports business.
Well, and it's a perfect
across the world, actually, not just in the U.S. I think the global market's probably bigger.
And that really ties into our interview this week, because the whole dynamic between digital and television is being blurred. NeuLion, the international company, digital and consumer media rights holder, not only in North America, but 32% international. Chris Wagner, the co-founder of NeuLion, talks about everything digital, including the rights that they have with the NBA, NFL, NCAA, Univision, Sky, Tennis Channel, and otherwise, and what the distinctions are today and in the future between digital, television, and where things are going. Great honor to be joined by Chris Wagner, the co-founder of NeuLion, building a global footprint in the digital video broadcasting and distribution world. In the sports and media industries, we understand, and it is diverse. You're one of the initial pioneers that co-founded the entity, but realized that the distinction between television and other mediums is really more blurry than people thought. When did you first have that epiphany, and how did you act on it?
Well, we started NeuLion in 2004, and the thesis of the company was, how can we change the experience for consumers? We're techies, so we're a technology service company. When we started the company, we're a group of techies that really thought the internet could be a way of changing the experience for viewers. We started with video. We actually started with Islanders TV. My partner owned the New York Islanders hockey club, and we wanted to create an experience for Islanders fans that was different than television and was always on. So if you were a diehard Islanders fan, you could always see morning skate, or you could talk to a player through the internet, essentially always be connected. And that's how we got started. That was back in 2004, and lo and behold, here we are, and did 63,000 live events last year. So every year it just gets bigger.
All right, you got 30 seconds to describe each of the 63,000. Go.
It's a lot of sports, and if you're an NFL fan, an NBA fan, or a UFC fan, watching it on a connected device is totally different than television. It's very interactive. It's seamless across any kind of screen you have in front of you, and it allows you to experience those sports very differently than what you might be used to on your cable set-top box. So you mentioned your kids kind of know what I'm saying, but we've seen fans gravitate to internet-connected devices, just more fun. There's more you can do with sports.
So the first world was break through and be noticed and understand the courage of your vertically integrated convictions. The next world was to identify the synergies between content and your backbone, I guess is a way to put it, which is the technology side of this, and your licensing deals with many more of the NFL, NBA, NCAA, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. 70% of the total revenues in 2015. What's the mix now? Is it the backbone and the content equal, or where are you going?
Well, we have three products. The first product you're talking about that generates 70% of the company's revenue is a NeuLion digital platform. And we work with people that own content rights. So NFL, we built a product for them called NFL Game Pass. So if you're interested in watching live NFL games, 2 TV channels, which is Red Zone and the NFL Network, you want live stats, you want to be able to go into the archive and rewatch this past Super Bowl over and over again, you can get that as a subscription. So a fan would find that product on NFL.com. They would click and sign up and use their credit card to buy a service called NFL Game Pass. And that complete service is powered by NeuLion. So we take all of the live game feeds right from the sports networks like Fox and others. We put them in all the right formats so you can watch it in HD or even 4K on an internet device. Then we help the NFL run their whole back office. So the ability to collect, charge consumers, package content, price content, make it available in 180 different countries around the world. We do that for them. And then we build all the apps. So the apps that you would find on a phone or on an Apple TV or on a smart television, also done by the NeuLion digital platform. So that's our big product. We also license to consumer electronic companies like Sony and LG a little 4K software player that they embed on their TV set. So when you buy a new Ultra HD TV from Best Buy or any retailer, everybody's buying Ultra HD TVs now, to do live streaming of 4K sports, which is 4 times HD, twice the frame rate. I mean, it's stunning. You feel like you're inside the arena. Our platform and our player on the set work together. That's our second product. And then the third product is just a group of technologies we license to help people with video compression, like Adobe and Microsoft and Apple. So as they look for ways to compress video and use the internet to transport it, they license our tech for that. Those are our 3 products.
and 3 pretty substantial products. And I guess from a business show perspective that is international, here's the business case 101 question that I've got. You mentioned all of those companies, and just the list is just beginning. All of the leagues like the NFL and NBA and NCAA and UFC, etc., Tennis Channel. But then you got Samsung and Sony and LG and Panasonic and Sharp, and then the other side of it, the Apple, Microsoft, and Dolby. How do you develop product that is agnostic enough where companies don't, after the first meeting, try to eat you up?
It's a good question. I mean, the answer gets a little techie, but if you think about Star Trek, right, and how Scotty would beam somebody up from the bridge down to a planet. We've been able to create a video technology that can compress video, break it up into all those little pieces, like my Star Trek analogy, push it over the public internet, and then reconstruct it on your phone, your computer, or on your TV, and do it in stunning quality. So it's less expensive to transport it over the internet, and the quality level, again, is better than cable or satellite. So that's one technology that's been the backbone of NeuLion. And then we've built things around it, how you would monetize the content. You talked at the beginning about the expanding costs of media rights, certainly sports rights. I think the cost of sports rights is exceeded, according to PricewaterhouseCoopers, the amount of tickets that get sold in an arena now. If you add up all the ticket sales, it's actually less than what media rights are. So how you monetize those media rights, connect with fans, get them to see commercials, see ads, subscribe with their credit card, buy a digital ticket online like we do with the UFC. Video quality, then that merchandising, are 2 really key things that we've been able to differentiate in the market.
And that's the other piece, clearly, is that you mentioned the Pricewaterhouse study, $20 billion, probably understated. But to go even further than that, about $6.5 billion in 2016 was video streaming, a 22% increase over last year. When do we blur the numbers where it's 50-50 and even more? First of all, when do the lines cross? And then B, when do we have a common measuring system that will take a game or an event and measure everybody that's watching in every way so advertisers can figure out what the real value is?
No, it's a great question. You have the Nielsen rating system that is working to take ratings on television and combine it with ratings on digital audiences, so they're actively pursuing it. You have companies like Adobe, ComScore, Google Analytics that are trying similar things. But it's a great question. How do you aggregate all that viewing time? Because even we've seen lots of stuff in the news lately about are people watching less sports on television? And I think the answer is they're not watching less sports. They're just watching it on more different kind of devices. So the audience is spreading out. So how do you aggregate that audience both on digital and broadcast so that you can monetize it with an advertiser? So there's some work being done there by the companies I've mentioned. From NeuLion's standpoint, it actually gets very, very specific and very pinpointed because we have all the watch data. So we know what people watch, what devices they prefer, what programs they like to watch more of, how long they watch those programs. And that data becomes invaluable to companies like UFC and others because they can use the data to really focus in on how do I find more subscribers, how do I use that data to make sure I don't lose the ones that I've got. So in the subscription business, it gets very analytical around lifetime value and managing churn. In the advertising business, like the point of your question, it's about how do I mass up all the audiences between TV and digital. I think that's coming.
When?
I don't have a good answer for you on when. I do know that we've just reached certification with Nielsen, so all of our streaming encoders are now certified by Nielsen. So Nielsen is doing some good work in being able to use their watermarking so that they can match up audiences, whether you're on a smartphone or watching it through your cable set-top box. So they've always been a leader in that space on the broadcast side. So it's happening now. Univision is another customer of ours. They're the fifth largest network in the United States. We do all their sports, entertainment, and news. They're a big Nielsen fan. They also want to be able to aggregate broadcast digital audiences into one. And again, this certification we have in Nielsen helps them do that.
Well, friends like Mark Lazarus and others who are, Sean McManus, who are at the front end of the quote-unquote television side, but transitioning to digital as well, want this to happen sooner than later, as we know. And I guess part of the question is, when I say when, it's not just when is the technology available, but when is it valid enough where Madison Avenue decides to quantify and give credit so the advertising dollars really reflect the eyeballs.
No, that's true, and I think there's a struggle also on the sales side on how you value that digital audience. The price you pay for advertising on digital, and how does that compare with the price that an advertiser may pay on broadcast television. But you've seen some non-broadcast companies with media rights like Netflix, Hulu, a lot of NeuLion's customers, like some of the ones that I've mentioned, really see an opportunity to connect directly with the consumer around a subscription model. So the subscription business is a big business. If you look at the over-the-top subscription number worldwide by 2019, it's going to be $100 billion business. So focusing on activating the subscriber is something that you can do now. So I don't discount the advertising business. You're right, the big networks have to figure that out. But a lot of these enthusiast networks that we have, like Professional Bowling or World Surf or Tennis Channel Plus or the Big Ten Network, right, are finding money connecting directly with their enthusiasts through these OTT services, and that's a monthly subscription.
And I guess long-term future of the industry, which nobody can predict, but you can maybe give some trends. What happens to the argument that sports is the ultimate reality television because nobody knows what the score is? If you go to sleep in the second half of the Super Bowl, you can testify to that. But the fact that your service allows prolific archiving so people can watch it over time, does that diminish or increase the value of this to advertisers and otherwise?
I don't think it diminishes it, but I think sports is probably the last appointment you're going to keep. I think the trends that we see, certainly with younger people, is all the programming is moving, more on demand. Appointment television is kind of going away, so you watch things on the screen you have in front of you, and you watch things whenever you want to watch them. So on-demand programming has also created an audience that's spreading out. Sports is different. To your point, you really don't want to know the score if you're following your favorite team. So you show up for the live event because it's only going to happen once. we see a big drop-off on usage after the live event in terms of, game replays and archives. We do a neat thing for the NFL called Snap to Whistle. So on Monday morning, you can go back to all the Sunday games and watch those games in 30 minutes. So we actually collapse the game, and we take out every huddle, every penalty, every stoppage of play. So it's snap, whistle, snap, whistle, snap, whistle. So if you're a Redskins fan like me and you're in the New York market and you couldn't watch it, Monday I can watch it in 30 minutes. Even though I know the score, we just changed the way we deliver it. So that's the reason why sports rights are so expensive, because it is the last appointment you're going to keep. And watching it live is much preferred than watching it replayed.
And it's good psychologically for you Redskin fans, because you can confine your disappointment to a 30-second increment. Congratulations to you.
Exactly.
That's probably
exactly. Well, they did a little bit better this year.
Look, let's not talk about Jay Gruden. We could do that another day, okay? That would be fine. And RG3, we can also do that.
So I should sing Hail to the Redskins on this podcast.
Could,
probably
but you'll
would
be long cut off. After the second bar, you'll be long cut off, and nobody can hear it. I don't care where you think you archive it. So the final kind of issue on this is, as one of the smartest guys in the room with the smartest company in the room, do you feel excessively challenged by the confusing maelstrom that is the combination of media rights today and the technology platforms? Back in a simpler day, I guess more people could participate because it required less entrepreneurial skills to navigate. I assume things are much more challenging today, but you also get more rewarded. How do you feel about all that?
Well, media rights are, from a fan perspective, just explaining NFL media rights and where to watch the game at 1 o'clock or 4 o'clock or Sunday night or Monday evening. You have to get trained to figure out where to go. So blackouts, fans really don't like. What channel is it on? Fans really don't like. What website do I go to find the app? Fox is different than CBS, is different than NBC. So sports rights are very expensive. There's nobody can afford to buy them all. Just buy all the NBA or NFL rights is a pretty big number. The fragmentation creates challenges for the viewer to find the game. But from a technology standpoint, the world's gotten flat with the internet. So being able to deliver a UFC fight in 200 countries, take a local currency, handle a local payment, connect directly with the viewer, the tech has made that simpler. But you're right, the fragmentation of sports and where to find it, NeuLion's not curing that, but we certainly are making it easier to deliver the event.
NeuLion may not be curing that, but they're curing a whole lot of other things. Chris Wagner, co-founder of NeuLion, thanks for everything and all you do in the industry. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for the time.
Thanks for listening to this edition of Keeping Score. I'm Rick Horrow. The producer of the show, Alex Cohen. Associate producer, Bethel Habte. Assistance provided by Tanner Simpkins and Carlos Waddick. And the executive editor of Reuters Digital, Dan Colarusso.